Hi everyone. If you are moving to New York and you are looking for an apartment, then please listen to my video because it has so many useful tips for you to save money and to find a good place for you without hassling from the sales agents and from the brokers. So I would advise you, if you decide to live in New York for a few years, then sign a lease as soon as possible. Signing a lease will give you a privilege to keep the price of the rent on some moderate level, so it will not go up um, too much every time you will renew the lease. Because according to the laws, the management cannot raise your rent too much every time you renew it. So when a lease expires or if there is no lease in effect, an owner of an unregulated apartment may charge what the market will bear. However, it has to be wise and it has to be fair. Um, for example, if the apartment rents for over to 2,700 and the prior tenant paid 800, the increase may only be justified by legal adjustments, such as the vacancy allowance and individual apartment improvement increases. Um, so basically, if you rent, if you sign the lease, 1 year or 2 year lease, and your apartment will be, let's say, $2,000, after a year or 2 years, um, according to the agreement, when you renew the lease, probably it will increase up to 5% of your previous lease, but it will not go crazy. It will not go higher until they really made some improvements into your apartment. However, if you if you want to change the apartment and if you want to look for, let's say, another apartment in maybe in a neighbor building in the same neighborhood, the price will probably be so much higher this time than when you signed the lease 1 year or 2 years ago, because now they will first they probably painted the walls, then maybe they changed the bathtub and toilet, so they will put it into the rent, into the new rent. Plus, um, the market value always goes up. The market value of the new rent always goes higher than before. That's why the new rent price probably will be around $2,500. So I certainly suggest you, based on my experience, if you decide to live in New York for New Year's, please sign the lease, sign it to your name, and this way you will secure and you will lock the price for a few years. Sometimes you can rent all your life or you can rent 10, 20 years, and it will save you so much money. If you just find a proper apartment right away, you will sign the lease and you will put the security deposit and you will just stay in this apartment for a few years. My mistake was that I thought, okay, let me live here. This is within my budget. Let me live here for a few time. And then when I feel that I want to, I find a neighborhood and maybe I will change my job. So I'm not sure if this is the apartment that I want to. When this day happens, when you want to change your apartment, it will be so much more expensive than it used to be. That's why so many people they stay in the apartment that they lived all the life, because um, they don't wanna pay more than they can pay with the current landlord. Now, this being said, there are different apartments and housing options in New York. My advice is try to find a rent stabilized or rent control apartment. What does it mean? If your rent stabilized, your rent can only be increased in accordance with the rent guidelines issued by the Rent Guidelines Board each year. For rent stabilized apartments in New York City, the rent increase collectible in any year may not exceed 6% of the tenant's rent. This year, 2018, New York City Rents Guidelines Board voted to allow landlords of rent-stabilized apartments to charge increases of up to 1.5% for one-year leases and 2.5% for two-year leases. You see, although the ceiling is 6%, they usually don't go more than 1 to 3% increase. This is so convenient if you find a good apartment in a good neighborhood with a big space. I would suggest you get a bigger apartment and just get a roommate if you cannot afford it right now. But it will be much, it will save you so much more money if you, for instance, just rent a studio and then you maybe some of your family moves in with you or your boyfriend, and then the apartment will be too small. It's easier to get rid of your roommate than to sign a new lease and pay more money for it. Now, I'll send you in the description of my video will be the link to this NYC GOV website, where there are so many useful links and information if you want to rent an apartment in New York. So once you find an apartment that you like, once the management decides to sign you the lease, ask for the preferential rate from the landlord. Preferential rate is any rent charged to rent stabilized tenant that is lower than the legal rent. For instance, very usually the management will tell you, okay, this apartment is $1,800 or $300 or $2,000. Go back to the management and ask for the preferential rate if they can give it to you. They can consider your case, and most of the times they will give it to you. However, every time you renew the lease, your increase can go up to the market value. So let's say if the apartment market value is $1,800 and they give you the preferential rate of $1,700, every time you renew the lease, they can increase it up to $50 or up to $1,800. They will not look at 1% and 2.5%, but they will the 1% and 2.5% will not be based on the preferential rate, but it will be based on the market value rent. But still, this is a good way to save money and to pay less. Now, let's talk about now how do you look for an apartment. This is the first thing that you want to do is you need to choose a neighborhood that you like to live in and that you can afford. The closer it's to the city, the closer it's to Manhattan, the more expensive it is. Some people prefer to live in Brooklyn because they have friends there. Some people prefer to live in the Bronx because maybe the commute is faster. Some people prefer to live in the Queens because there are lots of many shopping centers there. So if you want to move into New York, look around, stay at the hotel first or rent an Airbnb and just go around everywhere, look where you found, do some research, do some due diligence. There are always websites that you can look how much apartments are, like Street Easy or Craigslist. Just go to Google and type rent apartment NYC. There will be so many websites showing up, and you can filter the search and choose the neighborhood that you want to look apartments in. This way you will make a judgment what neighborhood is more expensive, what neighborhood is less expensive. Of course, when you move into New York, you always go out, you always go to the neighborhood where you feel comfortable to live. For instance, you want to live in a Spanish-speaking neighborhood or in Chinatown, or you want to live next to the beach, or you want to live next to Staten Island. Maybe you have your in-laws there. So choose a neighborhood that is convenient and affordable for you. Then start looking for an apartment. You can do that either online or you can do it through walking around. So, as I said, for instance, let's start from online, right? Here it is. So from online, there you go. They say, you see, Street Easy or Craigslist. Um, let's say you want to rent an apartment in downtown Brooklyn. So you type in search engine, 1 bedroom or studio apartment or 2 bedroom apartment in downtown Brooklyn. And there you go. There will be so many websites. You can go and check and get contacted with the sales agents who advertise this apartment. Now, number 2 option, I would suggest you to walk around, get off the subway in downtown Brooklyn, walk around, look at the buildings that you like, that you look nice, and try to get numbers. Some of the buildings will have a post, available apartments required inside. Some new buildings will have big banners and will be like, apartments for lease are available. Please call this number. For some buildings, you can walk in, and there will be the name of the management and the phone number or the phone number of the super. You can take down those numbers and just call the management and or the super and ask if there are any availabilities. These can save you money on the broker fees. If the management can lease you directly without a broker, you will save up money on the application fees, on the background, on the broker fees, which sometimes can be up to $5,000. So this is a good saving. And if you have time and you feel comfortable to talk about the management, and if you have all documents, you know you that then verify and prove your income and prove that you are able to pay off your rent every month on time, you will have no problem talking to the management. If you have some kind of issues with your credit score, if you have issues with a security deposit, if you're just a student here and there is no one who can sponsor you, then please, it will be easier for you to talk to a sales agent and find a good broker who will be negotiating the leasing process for you. Then, word of mouth, of course, it's a good way to talk to your friends or co-workers, ask for any, you know, if you, for instance, you went to to a house of your friend and you really like the apartment, you ask your friend how much they pay. They say that they pay the amount that you can afford. Ask for the super, ask for the building management number, and call and find if there are any availabilities. Many management companies, they don't own just one building. They own a few buildings, maybe in the same area, maybe in different areas. So it's worth to call up and find if they have anything available for you. Walking around, as I said, housing, offices, apartment referral services. Well, I would say these are all possible, but they are not the most effective. So I would say the most effective way is just either find a good real estate agency or do the or do the work yourself. Just walk around and ask, write down the numbers and call the management up. To find a good real estate agent, you can also do it through either a search engine or you can just walk in and look for real estate offices in the neighborhood that you're looking in. For instance, let's say if you're interested in finding an apartment in downtown Brooklyn, you can just Google, put on the map real estate offices next to the subway station, and you can just walk in, or you can call, or maybe they have a website and start working with an agent. So for more details about the what you will ask me, how can I find a rent stabilized apartment? There is a list of rent stabilized apartments on this website. You see, I'll put the link in the description too. But also you can ask the management or the sales agent, please find me a rent stabilized apartment, or you can type in the search engine, rent stabilized apartment in downtown Brooklyn, for instance. Try to find a rent stabilized apartment. It will save you a lot of money. If you can afford to get a luxurious apartment in a new building with the swimming pool and the gym and the doorman and the playroom, that would be just so easy. Such condos, most of them, they have leasing offices on premise. So you just walk in, you ask in what is the leasing office number, you call them and you talk to them. This way you can also save money on the broker fee. They can give you maybe 1 month rent free, and you will be able to to do the process on your own. It's not so hard. Everything is done through the email. You can fax, you can mail the papers. If you have questions about the rent, you can always find a lawyer who will be explaining to you the terms and conditions. But most of their leases are very standard, and you just have to look at the few sections of the lease, like cancellation fees, and what are the requirements for like garbage removal, what fines can be. But usually the management will explain everything to you, and it's pretty much straightforward. Anyway, if you have other suggestions how to look for an apartment in New York, or if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to put them under the video, and please like the video and subscribe to my channel. There will be a lot of more tips, how to how to get used to the life in New York and how to adapt to it. Take care. Bye bye.